Library of the Silly Wife. Today I thought I would talk to you, probably this is going to be part one of a video about what is it that I plan to do for my reading life in 2020. Now I have to start by saying that my reading life for 2019 was pretty pitiful. I just was in, it was like one long reading slump. And so when I hit September and I looked back and I realized I had read 6 books for myself. I mean, as a homeschool mom, I read a lot of books for my kids and to prepare and that sort of thing. But for myself and for pleasure, I'd read 6 in 9 months. And I was like, nah, that's got to change. So I kicked it in high gear, and then I set myself some goals or some projects I wanted to work on for 2020. So I'd like to talk to you about those. Before I do, I want to comment about my eyes may look a little swollen. I'm having trouble with makeup right now. I'm finding I'm having an allergy and I can't figure out what it is. So I am having to not wear any eye makeup right now, and my eyes are really itchy and scratchy, and so that's what's going on. I didn't get beat up. I didn't go on an all-night binge or something. I'm allergic to my makeup apparently. So the first thing I want to talk to you about then is what I'm calling my 20 and 20, or my 20 books I want to read in 2020 that come from outside my own personal library. Now, this is going to be a list that I'm going to create as I go along. So this is where I might find new books, maybe books that get published next year. And these things will be added to the list as I go. So I can't really say, hey, I'm going to read X, Y, and Z, because right now, I don't know. There's nothing really on my list. I've written down some suggestions, but I'm kind of going to leave that one open. So the one I really want to talk to you today about is my 20 and 20, so my 20 books I want to read in 2020 that are from my home library. And sometime I will talk to you about my little book that I keep. That may maybe be for another video, but I do a lot of reading planning and listing and stuff in here. So for my 20 and 20 home finds, I set myself some categories, and then I decided to pick 2 books from each category, and they had to come from within my own library. Now, you can only see one little corner here of my library, but it goes all the way around my room. And I have probably somewhere around 2,500 books in here. And these books are books that I have purchased, books that have been purchased by others and then given to me. Or when my dad retired, he gave me his library. Well, now he's no longer retired, so he continues to build a library again. So I have this massive library from him, and I suspect I'm probably going to have more books from him in the future. So anyhow, so that's how I got my library. So there ought to be 20 books that I can pick and get them from each of the categories I picked. So my first category that I picked was 2 books from the year I was born. Well, I was born in the year 1975, and I pulled up a list online of books published in 1975, and it was pretty slim pickings. There was not a lot that I'd even heard of. And so I started, looking through my library trying to say, hey, do I have any of these? Well, I only had one. And that one is Ramona the Brave by Beverly Cleary. So that's where I'm going to start. I can't believe that I've never read this book, but somehow it has, I've missed it. I don't know. And I like Beverly Cleary. But I never have read this one. So that one's going to be for my year 1975. Now, my next book pick for 1975, I confess I did cheat a little bit. I went to my favorite bookstore called Always Buying Books in Joplin, Missouri, and they were having a sale. And they had Stephen King books on sale, and so I bought several. Well, it just so happens that Salem's Lot was published in 1975. So that's my other pick. Since I didn't actually buy this after 2020 began, I'm still going to call it one of my home finds. I guess I'm cheating already, but I'm real excited about this. I don't know anything about it. I've only read one other and a partial other Stephen King, and it was good what I read. So it's funny, I'm just now seeing what's on the cover of this. When I held it up to the camera, it was the first time I saw this. How funny. Now I know what it's about. Okay. My second category is classics. And I have two classics that I have tried multiple times to read. The first one is the beloved Count of Monte Cristo. I know the lighting is really bad today. I'm sorry. So The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I started this book. I bought this book at a Barnes & Noble in Evanston, Illinois in April of 2004. And I started it then. And then I put it down. And then I started it again. And I got to this bookmark. And then I put it down. And then I started it again. And I got to this bookmark. Then I got it on an ebook. And I started it again. I think I got to about chapter 11. This is the year I'm going to finish this book. It's a fabulous story. I've seen many movie adaptations. And when I put it down not because I wasn't enjoying it. I don't really know why. Maybe I put it down because it was so heavy and I have arthritis and some carpal tunnel, and maybe that's why I put it down. Maybe it was just taking so long, and there were a whole bunch of other books that were interesting me. So I may kind of break this up and read, a chapter at a time, something like that. But this puppy is getting read this year. My other classic that I have selected kind of has a story also, and that is Don Quixote by Miguel Cervantes. And the story here goes that, and I think there's a bookmark. Yeah, I have a bookmark in here too. When I was a senior in high school, I was in my 4th year of Spanish, and something happened, which it's been so long now, I don't remember. I was unable to finish a project or a test or something, and right now I don't even know what it would be, because I was a very conscientious student, kind of a nerdy student, so if I missed something, it would have been by accident. I really can't remember. But my Spanish teacher said, well, I'm going to average your grade without that if you will promise me that you will read Don Quixote and that you will call me and tell me how you liked it. I said, absolutely, I promise. Well, that was in 1993. The summer of 1993, I got to page 70. And then I started college, and I put it down, and I've never picked it back up. So that makes me a liar, and I don't like that. So this year, my goal is to read this, and I've got to find that teacher. I don't know anything about where she ended up. I know she's not at the school I went to. I don't know if she's retired. I would imagine, probably so. But I gotta look for her. I've got to try to find her. So that's my second pick for a classic. Now my next category is science fiction. I love science fiction, but I feel like I haven't really read that much lately. So I'm super excited to get back to some science fiction. So my 2 picks from my home are Isaac Asimov's Foundation. I don't know how I've never read this, but I'm pretty excited to read it. And the next one is Splinter of a Mind's Eye. I don't know if you can really tell, but it's a Star Wars novel. I'm not really sure when this was written. I'm going to look here. I should have looked before. Okay, it was written in 1978. So, oh, I see. Well, I think, I'm just looking at this. Well, I don't know. There's something strange in here. I'll talk to you about it next year after I get into it. But, so I think this has been in my dad's library for most of my life because I was born in 75. So, but I'm going to pick this one and see. This almost looks like maybe it was taken from another book. Well, I'll let you know. My next category is fantasy, and I love a good fantasy novel. However, someone on BookTube, and I think it might have been Mara at Books Like Whoa, was talking about how, you know, she doesn't read a lot of fantasy because after she read The Lord of the Rings and The Chronicles of Narnia, it's like, what more is there? And I mean, I kind of have to agree there. It's like those two are the masterpieces of the genre. So it is kind of hard, but I still like fantasy, so I'm going to give it a go this year. My two picks that are currently in my home library are The Never-Ending Story, and I just think this cover looks so good. It would help if I could show it to you without that lighting. I've seen the movie many, many times, but I've never read the book, so I'm really looking forward to this one. And the next one that I'm going to read is Wicked. Now, this poor cover, I got this at a library sale. Can you see it says discard? I think something goes in here. It looks like it's been torn out, but I got it for 10 cents at the library, so pages all seem to be intact. It was damaged in water. They had a flood at my library, and so they sold this book. My poor library, I want to give a little shout out to my library. It's the Johnston Public Library in Baxter Springs, Kansas. They've had more troubles. They had a flood several years ago, and it flooded the basement, and they've had to do a whole lot of work. They had to replace their elevator because it's in a big two-story building, an old historic building. And then just about a month ago, the hot water heater, which was on the second floor, exploded and flooded the whole library, and they've lost a ton of books, and they're having to gut a lot of the library, and it's a pretty sad deal. So I've been really thankful for this library, and so we're hopeful that it can get back up and going, and I know they're going to need to raise a lot of money. But I digress, so let me move on to my next category, which is historical fiction. Now, historical fiction is one of my favorite genres, and so I have to say I've pretty much finished all the historical fiction in my home library. Now, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, I've finished everything. In fact, some of them I've read multiple times. So this one I'm kind of stretching here because I've picked some historical fiction that are really historical romance. I have quite a few of these. My mom was she really loved historical romance, and so when she passed away, I got a lot of her books, but I've never read them because romance is not my favorite genre. So anyway, my picks then for my historical fiction romance are, first of all, Outback Station. Who's this by? By Aaron Fletcher. Now, I understand there's another book. There's book 2. And if I like this one, I'll read book 2. My mom loved this one. And my other choice is this poor copy of this book. It's The Thorn Birds. Can you see this was a much loved and read book? So, again, I can't believe I've never read this one. I mean, how did that happen? But anyway, that's what I'm going to read. So, that's my historical fiction / historical romance choice. Now, my next category is fiction, just plain old fiction, and I've picked 2 for that one. And the first one is The Shadowland by Elizabeth Kostova. Now, if you're not familiar with Elizabeth Kostova, this is her 3rd novel. She's written 2 others. The first one is called The Historian, and it is a new take on Dracula. It is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. It's one of my favorites. Her second book is called The Swan Thieves, which is absolutely on the other side of the spectrum from The Historian. There's no paranormal in it, but you wonder at first. It's fabulous. I recommend both of those books. And this is her third novel, and I have her other two, so I thought, hey, I better pick this one up. I got it like at a Barnes & Noble for $2. So I was pretty excited about that. I really don't know anything about it except that it takes place in Romania, I believe. So I'm really excited to get into this one. And this is, again, this is just my fiction pick. And my second fiction pick is this one called Angel's Share by James Markert. I know very little about this book. It has to do with the end of Prohibition and making whiskey and maybe a town's survival, I think. Oddly enough, I bought this book at Mardel, which is a Christian bookstore, and I thought that was pretty strange because if you know anything about whiskey making, when you put whiskey in a barrel, anything that soaks into the barrel is called the devil's cut. And then anything that evaporates out, which some will, is called the angel's share. Thus, the name of this book. So, I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know about this book, but I look forward to reading it. Now, my next two picks are nonfiction. I read a lot of nonfiction. I love nonfiction. And I read it all throughout the year, so of course it's nonfiction November right now, so that's really heavy on my mind, but I read nonfiction anyway. I love true stories. So my first pick for nonfiction is Out of Africa. Now I hope you can see it. I hope there's not too much of a glare there. But I loved the movie, and this is obviously a movie cover, which I'm not really big on movie covers, but again, I got this from my library, and it says 25 cents on that sticker, but I got it for a dime. So I'm pretty excited about this one, and I'm also excited because it's large print, and that will help me immensely. So I'm going to read that one, and I dropped the other one in the floor as I was talking, so if you'll excuse me, I'm going to pick it up. And that one is Gifted Hands and it's Gifted Hands, the Ben Carson story, and it's by Ben Carson. I love Ben Carson. I think he is a great person. And so I'm really excited to read his book. I saw the movie that was based on his book. It was so good, and I thought, I need to read that. Now, my next category is mystery. Now, I read a lot of mysteries. It seems like every time I go to the library, I'm getting a mystery of some kind, whether it be an Agatha Christie or a cozy. I love cozy mysteries. So I've read a whole lot of the mysteries that I have on my shelves, but I discovered that I had a couple that I think I probably got from my dad in the mix somewhere, and he may have gotten them from an auction. I'm not sure. And these, I just sort of accidentally even discovered they were mysteries because there's not much about them. Because this is how the first one looks. This one is called Chinese Shawl. I know absolutely nothing about this book. I looked it up because I discovered it's from the Public Library of Kansas City, Missouri. It's been stamped with this little thing that pokes holes through the pages. I never had seen that before. Well, anyway, it was written in 1943, and when I opened the front cover, it said a Miss Silver mystery, and I was like, okay, I'm in. So that's my first one, Chinese Shawl. It's by Wentworth. And my second one is very similar. There's no dust jacket. It's just a book. And this one is called The Sphinx. Who is this by? Oh, this is by Robin Cook. Well, I've heard of Robin Cook. So that's exciting. was written in 1979. The Sphinx. So I'm looking forward to that one. I love a good mystery. Now, my next category is suspense thriller. And again, I have read most of the suspense thrillers on my shelves. And so I found one that I got from my dad. I think he picked it up through an auction. And it's an oldie. And again, I don't know anything about it. It just says it's a thriller. And that is Decision at Delphi by Helen McInnes. Now look at that gal's outfit. That tells me I'm probably going to like this one. I love these older thrillers and like mystery novels and stuff. It was written in 1960. The cover kind of has sort of Nancy Drew vibes to me, so anyway, I'm looking forward to that. I don't know anything about it. There's not any description on the back of the book. My next pick for suspense thriller is The Alienist by Caleb Carr. I thought that I had read this book, but I've looked back in my records and I've not read it. I've had it since it came out, at least since it came out in paperback. Why haven't I read it? I don't know. So this year is my year. My next category is middle grade or young adult or children's books, and I have picked two for that one. And the two that I've picked are Holes, and I saw the movie and I thought it was super cute, and I thought if the movie's good, I bet the book is better, because that's usually the way it goes. So I picked Holes. And the other one I picked is The Tombs of Anak, the Cooper Kids Adventure Series, Book 3. Now I'm going to reserve the right on this one to switch it out and pick a different one, because I hate to start a series in the middle. I don't think it's going to matter so much on this, but even a kid's series, I hate to start in book 3. So if I find book 1, I'm going to start with it. If I don't, I know I don't have book 1. So I may end up switching this out to something else and just looking for books 1 and 2 before I start this one. So if I do switch it out, I'll let you know. Now, I did have a miscellaneous category because for a time I couldn't find one of the books that I wanted to pick for the other category. So I was like, well, I better make a miscellaneous so that I can have 20 books. So I picked this one. We'll see if this one gets read or not, but it is Mallory's Le Morte d'Arthur. It's the Legend of King Arthur. And my son, who is only 10, wants to read this book desperately. And I've never read it. I watched Excalibur, and he ain't watching that. So I need to read it and see if there's anything too terrible that he can't read. I mean, I know the story, so I know it could lend itself to being inappropriate for a 10-year-old. But I need to get this one read, and then, then I'll know, and then maybe I can tell him, hey, in a couple of years you can read it. So that's my miscellaneous pick, which will really bring me up to 21. We'll see if it gets read. So that is my 20 and 20 home finds list. Are you guys going to make lists? Are you going to make some plans for your reading next year? Do you normally do that? Just let me know in the comments what you're going to do. What do you think about this idea of these 20 and 20 home finds? Or, what do you think you might do? I'd love to hear from you. Hope you're having a great day. Hope you've had a lot of time to read, and I'll talk to you next time.